Good afternoon. I'm going to call the Economic Matters meeting to order, July 16th at 1:02 p.m. We'll do a roll call. Alderman Savage here.
Present.
is here as well. We're going to do next. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? We're going to move the order around a little bit. Items to add or take out, I believe. So
I'll move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. So we're going to start with the second piece of legislation, the O2120 and O2220, the conveyance of city-owned property. Oh, sorry, they're separate ones. First one, O2120, for the purpose of approving the conveyance of certain city-owned property to 113 Cathedral Street. Is that one, Mr. City Manager, that you can talk a little bit about? I know we briefly discussed it, I think, at the 2 council meetings ago.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that. So this legislation has somewhat of a long history. So the previous owner of 113 Cathedral Street approached Alderman Budge at the time to ask about being able to acquire this for parking for his property. That was right before the last election. It didn't move forward at that time. Then we had the election and Alderman, and then they sold the property. I guess about a year ago, the new owner of the property came back to the city to ask about acquiring this property. It's a small piece. In fact, it's 2 small pieces because it's part of it's going to be sold to 113th Cathedral and one to the Kathleen Wolfel Trust. That's O2220. Very small piece of property. It's landlocked. It's only accessible through the city-owned parking lot. So if in fact it's sold to them to use as a parking lot, they're going to have to permanently acquire a couple of parking spots to be able to use, and they'll have to pay for those to use to access their property. At the time that we brought this forward, we didn't anticipate the level of interest that turns out that there is for these small pieces of property. And that's why we didn't consider putting it out for auction. That's the normal course for disposing of city property, is put it out for auction. We did not do that because it seemed very specialized and very sort of unique, because it's not accessible other than through the city parking lot to this adjacent property to these 2 pieces of property.
Thank you very much, Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. City Manager Gerald, help me to identify where this is. We have a lot on Larkin Street. Is it near that surface lot?
It is near. Let's see if I can find that information so I can describe it accurately.
And I'm thinking at the back of that.
You're correct. It's the Larkin lot. Yes.
So at the back of the Larkin lot is where this property is.
Yeah. So it's between that property and the Larkin lot.
Okay. And so now they're accessing their property through our property?
Well, they don't have parking there now.
Okay.
So what they would like to do is establish parking on these 2 small parcels that are owned by the city.
Mm-hmm. Would they need to access it at all using the city's lot further?
They would. So that's how they would get to it. So if we sold it to them, they would have to access it through the Larkin lot, and they would have to acquire a couple of the spots, permanently acquire a couple of the parking spaces to be able to make as a driveway to get to these pieces of property.
They would have to acquire our parking spots?
Yeah. So in addition to, well, they wouldn't have to acquire them. They would have to pay the monthly rate for those
Okay.
basically forever, because there's no other way to get to those piece of property other than through the the Larkin lot and then across a couple of the parking spaces.
Okay.
Thank you. Alderman Savage?
Yeah, thank you. And so I have a couple of concerns about this. Just one, I'm really hesitant to sell any kind of city property, especially if it has a potential use to us. And I think the potential use, which we didn't have the time to get into yet with environmental matters, would be putting in some kind of stormwater management. Because as it currently is, these areas are currently grass, so we'd be taking out green space and putting in paved, or allowing the owner to put in paved parking. When there is an entire parking lot behind these buildings. Julian or Ms. Green, either of you, I sent emailed a picture. Are you able to bring that up?
Yes,
on the
we
screen?
have it. We're loading it up for you now.
Okay, great. So, if I'm not mistaken, it's these. So you see the lot in the middle that's highlighted in blue. That is number 113 Cathedral, and the one to the left is 115. And so, to the city manager, I guess that area with all the cars behind there, I'm guessing that's the city lot.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so they're looking to get a portion of the grassed area and turn those into additional parking spots, and they'd have to come through our lot. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's correct. So you can see that I guess two spots. What they're talking about is two spots, and I guess they're just adjacent to the blue block that would have to be permanently marked out and permanently rented by these building owners in order to gain access to that land.
Do we have any? So how much of that is? So part of that's actually owned by the city. Is it is it an old right of way or old easement, or is it just that's not really shown on these plats I have access to? But
yeah, it was acquired at the same time that the full parking lot was acquired as part of urban renewal, and only a portion or most of the parcel was used for the parking lot, and these small pieces were not.
And so this is a city lot behind there. Let's see, this is
Correct.
I didn't even know we had a parking lot back there. How's it accessed? It's like off of...
Yeah, it's accessed
Through Larkin Street.
Yeah, Larkin Street was just on the left there.
What's the current... is there a little kiosk there for people to buy a ticket?
Yeah, I think so.
I've just been back there.
Yeah, it's managed by SP Plus like the rest of our parking is.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just a little... So I guess if we were to sell it, they would be taking part of that rear grass, putting in a lot, and that's what you're saying. They'd be taking away a couple of our spots, and then they'd have to pay us for that. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just a little hesitant because I just don't see the need, given that there's a city lot right here that's open to the public, right? It's not
It is.
reserved.
Yes. Yeah, and monthly. We have monthly space holders. So
okay.
Yeah, it's open to the public.
I mean, is there an alternative where we could work out a deal to say a few of these city spots would be reserved for customers of these two businesses?
We don't normally do that. No, I mean they can buy a monthly pass, like same as for the parking garages, but we don't normally reserve them for anyone in particular.
Okay. I'm just thinking if that might be an alternative for if they feel like they are in need of parking right next to the building. I guess the alternative would be they could just possibly purchase monthly passes and just keep it reserved in that sense for their customers?
They could, but I think they feel like they're going to get more than 2 parking spaces out of this parcel. So I think they feel like in the long run, it's less expensive for them to have their own parking on this property instead of, and pay for the 2 spaces instead of paying for more on the Larkin lot.
So they're getting 4. We are losing 2 spots, and they're getting 4 spots.
4 or more, yeah. I'm not sure exactly how many it is,
okay.
But yeah, it's definitely more than 2.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just a little cautious because this is something where if it's city owned, we could very well put in some kind of rain garden or that drains the rear of these buildings or some kind of facility. But once we sell it, there's no chance of us doing that, really. Okay, I'll just stop there. I've been talking long enough.
Thank you, Alderman Savage. Alderman Finlayson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at the map, Mr. Gerald, and I need you to help me understand what I see. I'm looking at the blue square, and I am very familiar with this lot, the Larkin Street lot, and it is one of, I think, 3 surface lots that we have, South Street and Donner lot, and then the Larkin Street lot. It's used by Asbury Church on weekends or Sundays and others. So I'm very familiar with this lot. Anyway, I'm looking at the blue square rectangle. I'm looking at the rear of the property, which doesn't look like green space to me. Or is that just dead grass?
Julian, can you zoom in on this photograph at all? That would be really helpful if you could zoom in on the blue block.
I believe it's grass. I think I'm going to try to find a picture Alderman Tierney sent.
It looks like a little bit of grass, but it looks like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's hard to tell on that left side what that almost looks like is paved, but I don't know why that would be paved back there or it almost looks like concrete.
So how much of that is ours?
Let's see. So that's on the staff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest, the staff report.
Is everything in the blue box? I see. Or is that just the total property inclusive of our portion?
So the ordinance 2120 includes, and that's 113 Cathedral, is 580 square feet. Ordinance 2220, which is 115 Cathedral, it's 59.3 square feet. So it's a total of about 640 square feet. So it's pretty small. So it's probably the area that's just, let's see. Well, it would be the area that's closest to the parking lot because it was originally it was part of that same parcel that the parking lot was built on.
So is it, 20% of this blue square or 30% of this blue square? I can't figure out.
I think that's probably in the right range between 20 and 30%. You can see up front that it covers the building. So it's not that part. It's just the part back by the parking lot.
So what would be our use for this property?
So the thought is, because we're always looking for places, and this has just come up since this was introduced, but I think it's a right thing to think about, is we're always looking for places to put stormwater management. These facilities in this area are old enough that they don't have stormwater management. So if they're ever redeveloped, or if we just want to, put in a project that would help with water quality, we could use this potentially for stormwater management. Put a rain garden or some other type facility in there for treating the stormwater.
Could that be a stipulation of sale?
No, because they won't be interested in buying it if we do that. They would have to put some very, very small stormwater treatment in if they're going to pave that 640 square feet. I guess they would. That's such a small area. But no, they want to use it for parking. They don't want it to be stormwater management.
Where do they park now?
I don't know if they park in the garage or in the surface lot or if they park somewhere else. That's not clear to me where they park right now. I suspect it's in the parking lot. But that's
so they may be paying to park now.
It could be.
So I'm not seeing the advantage for them. If they're paying to park now and then they want 2 or 3 or 4 spaces, but they'd have to access their spaces through ours, which means they'd be paying into perpetuity for those spaces there. I'm not sure of the benefit.
So they would have to be able to fit more than 2 spaces on that property. Because if it's only 2, then it would be they're paying 2 now and they're paying 2 in the future. But if they're able to fit 4 or 5 spaces on that and they're paying for those 4 or 5 now and they only have to pay 2 in the future, then that's the economic advantage to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would like to find out what is on this property, particularly that portion that looks like it could be paved already.
We have a Google Earth shot of it if you would like us to put that up as well.
Well, if that's better than what we're seeing, that would be terrific.
Okay.
You know, the lots back here are really weird anyway. My sister worked at a company that had a space or spaces back there. It's very different, I'll just say, the configuration. Is that it?
Yeah, we can't get it to get much closer.
Can we move it? Is that the surface lot, the Larkin Street lot at the bottom of the screen there? That's paved without lines on it from what we can see?
I also emailed a copy of there's one of the attachments to the legislation showing their proposal for the parking spots they want to remove and where they'd put the new ones.
Rob, I'm not understanding. You're kind of breaking up.
Sorry. I also emailed the site plan that was attached to the legislation showing the proposed parking spots.
You emailed it to all of us?
I sent it to Kia and Julian.
Oh, okay. So according to this, part of the lot is paved, part of this property is paved. I don't know. I don't know how far back our lot goes beyond what looks like a bus.
I think that paved area is entirely the Larkin parking lot. I'm looking at it on my computer as well, and it looks like the parking lot is that paved area. The parking lot extends over there, and then the grassed area is the other property that we're talking about. And it's split between those 2 buildings. You can almost see the property line run down.
And what are the addresses again, Mr. Gerald? I only have our agenda in front of me, so I don't have it open.
It's 113 Cathedral and 115 Cathedral.
Okay. The 115 is the Wofel?
Yeah, it was originally just the 113 Cathedral owner that came forward, and then the 113 property owner joined.
Okay. I'm afraid you're going to have to enlarge this.
So the 2 with the X's are the 2 that would be removed. And then those 4 up top are the new proposed new ones, I believe. And then
You go a little bit more with that, Julian, or is that it? Yeah. Yeah, so there's 4 new parking spots there. So they pay for 2 and get 4.
So P1 and P2 are each 2 parking spaces?
Those are the existing ones that will be taken out of operation, and they'll pay for those 2. And that'll become the driveway.
So that becomes the driveway?
Yeah, to access these 4 parking spots on the property that would be sold.
I'm not clear on this map. I don't know. Maybe I'm an English teacher. I'm not supposed to read maps, but I don't understand. Our lot does not look like the one that's on this diagram that I am aware of. Julian, could you move it down? Mr. Jakes, could you move it down a little bit so I could see where the entrance, other way? Where's Larkin Street? At the other end?
It's over to the left. So Cathedral is at the top, because that's 113 and 115 Cathedral that's shown at the top. So Cathedral runs along the top edge, and Larkin would be to the left.
But they don't intersect. Larkin Street is off of West Street, and it runs parallel to Cathedral Street.
Right.
Does it not?
Yeah, this is Cathedral close to West Street.
So I'm looking for Larkin Street. I don't see it.
Yeah, it's not on here. They're just showing a portion of the parking lot.
Larkin Street isn't connecting to that street.
Larkin is parallel to Cathedral Street.
No, it's City Gate Lane is parallel. Larkin is perpendicular to Cathedral.
I don't think so, Mr. Lyles. Cathedral Street. I'm almost positive Larkin Street runs parallel to Cathedral. May not be a straight line.
It's to the west.
There's Larkin Street. And there's Cathedral.
See how Larkin actually intersects City Gate right at the entrance to the parking lot.
Okay. And we've changed this name. So, okay.
Zoom in a little bit more on the intersection of Larkin and City Gate so we can see it. A little bit to the left. Yeah, right there's the intersection.
Okay.
So that's Larkin running to the left and City Gate running north and south.
Okay. Where is the church on this? And I'm oriented. I know where it is. I see it. So, okay. And there is no driveway off of Cathedral.
No.
I think my confusion, City Gate or whatever, used to be Larkin Street at West Street. And now it's Garden Gate or whatever.
City Gate Lane.
City Gate Lane. Because that used to be Larkin all the way to West Street. And that's why it's called the Larkin Street lot.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's not a concern. I guess we're trying to figure out where our lot ends, where our property really does end. And this picture does not show where the city's property ends.
I think it ends at the pavement. So you see where the pavement intersects the green area?
Yes.
Just to the north. I think that's, well, in fact, the city property continues past that because it wasn't all developed. And so there's a slice of that green area that is city owned, and that's what they want to purchase.
Right. And that's why I'm saying we're not saying how much of this is city property.
Right. But it's enough to pull a car in because they show the parking as straight pull in. So it's long enough to accommodate a car pulling straight in.
Well, I think the issue is we've got to weigh whether there's value in giving them their own parking spaces and taking those cars either off the street or off of our lot or out of our garage. Do we want to have them reliant upon coming through our lot to get to theirs forever? Because it's not going to be a short-term thing. If we don't let them do that, then they can't get to those spaces anyway. Do we want to keep this as green space? I don't know. Mr. Gerald, is your recommendation to sell it? I know, put you on the spot better than us at the moment.
I'm totally agnostic on this one. I'm totally
No. I mean, something that caught my attention, Mr. City Manager said, was that there could be a potential use down the line for stormwater management and water quality treatment, right?
Yes.
So that kind of makes me think twice.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably three options. One is that we put it out for public auction to get the highest bid. And these people have the most incentive to have it to use for parking, so they'd probably be the high bidder, but who knows? So that's one option, is put it out for bid or auction. Number two is to go ahead with this as proposed. Number three is to keep it as a city asset and potentially use it in the future for planting trees or stormwater management, or, there's a lot of different environmentally related things we could do with that property as well.
Julian, could you put up the image I just sent you?
Mr. Gerald, who maintains this property? Does Rex and Parks maintain it?
That's a great question. I don't have the answer to that. Because I don't think it's Rec and Parks, because it's not a park. It's more associated with the parking lot. So it's probably the grounds maintenance crew that does all the areas around parking lots. Mm-hmm. Because we do work around all the parking garages. There's landscaping features around those. So we have a contractor that does that. So it's probably that same contractor.
So it looks like we're maintaining their property as well as ours.
Yeah, I don't know where our property line ends. And maybe they're doing it. I just don't know. I really don't know.
Is this Alderwoman Tierney's legislation?
No, I don't think so. I don't think she proposed it.
Looks like it's from Gavin administration.
Yeah.
Alderwoman Tierney, just talking about it. Alderwoman Finlayson, are you finished? I was wondering if I could jump in.
I am, for the moment.
Just wanted to point out the staff report, I guess, because I was wondering about the lost revenue. Lost revenues estimated at $4,000 a year, and they would be paying $8,600 for the property one time. So it's not much revenue, but we would lose out on that in future years.
I think the agreement is that the owners would rent the 2 parking spaces at the current monthly rate. So whatever the monthly rate is, because that'll increase in the future, they continue to pay that amount.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
So the gain is a one-time $8,600. essentially.
Yeah.
Alderman Savage, what is the dollar amount? Are you reading that? I don't have it up in front of me.
Yeah, I'm looking at the fiscal impact note. So it's $8,600 to buy the land that we would get from selling it, and then they would rent both the spots on an annual basis for $4,000.
For $4,000
Mm-hmm.
for 2 spaces.
Yes, and that covers the lost revenue. So it'd be essentially no net change in terms of our revenue.
Is the 8,600 for each parcel, 21 and 22?
Yeah, I think that's correct because one of them has almost no value. The one that's 59.3 square feet, I think that was appraised at a very small number.
So are you saying it's combined $8,600?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think the fiscal report is for both of these ordinances. There's one fiscal report for both.
Okay. So we'd sell it for 86 and we'd make 4,000 a year on it, is what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Well, we would, but that's almost a neutral because we probably make that now off of it. That's just to cover the costs, the monthly rental costs for those 2 spaces, which presuming that they are already filled, that would just be a neutral.
Mm-hmm.
The advantage is just that small purchase price.
Has SP Plus weighed in on how one would manage this? Having somebody cut through the lot to get to their property?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if they've been asked.
I thought I saw that the Transportation Committee was going to address this, but no, I guess I did not. Nope, wrong legislation. Sorry.
I guess just being a little mindful of time because we don't have too much time today. Mm-hmm. I would like maybe ask my colleagues where your thoughts are on recommending this.
Well, I'd almost be inclined maybe that so I'm just thinking, looking in our area of economic impacts, I don't think there's much economic impact. I'd almost be inclined to propose just no action. I mean, I don't know if there's any reason to deny this from an economic standpoint or to recommend denial. I do in terms of environmental, but that's do with that in environmental matters, I guess. But I don't know. It's up to you, Chair, what direction you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with what you're saying, and have concerns about the potential future use, so that they're, and so I'm happy to pass it forward without either a rejection or a recommendation.
Well, I don't think we have adequate information, to be honest with you. We can't look at the map and see where our property line falls. There is no plan for, if we sell this, how it's going to work with them cutting through our paid parking lot to get to their parking space. I understand, selling them the 2 spaces into perpetuity, which will probably change at some point in time when somebody decides they don't want to pay anymore and they come and appeal to the next mayor and city council and ask that, that be waived. There's just too many questions. I thought this was going to be an easy one. So that's why I said, let's do this one first and then we can dispatch with it. Sorry. So I'm not ready to give a favorable. I thought I was until I looked closely and now I'm not.
So are you suggesting we postpone or simply take?
Well, do you think, Mr. Gerald, can we get, City Manager Gerald, can we get the information that would help us have a higher level or greater level of comfort on this?
So if you're looking for the means that would allow them to use the parking lot as a driveway, they'd be basically renting 2 spaces or leasing 2 spaces on a monthly basis forever. So that would allow them the access into the parking lot so they could travel through to their 2 spots and then drive on through that to get to the 4 spots that would be constructed on the property that we would sell them. So I don't think that that's a difficult issue. I think, the bigger issue is what's the city's best option for disposing of this property. And I think the 3 options that I talked about are the ones that need to be considered. Do we put it out for auction? Do we deal with just these property owners and sell directly to them? Or do we keep it and use it for environmental purposes? I think that's what we need to sort through and decide on.
That makes sense to me. And so maybe we just postpone until we have a further discussion around those various options that I think is worthy of a discussion. So if it's okay with everyone, we'll just move to postpone 02120 and then 02220 that's related to it. I guess we can take those as separate actions, but does that sound good?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, do you need a motion to postpone action on 021 and 022?
Yes, please.
Considered it done.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And now on to CA 120 and the related 02020. I don't know if Mr. City Manager or Alderman Savage, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I can kick it off. Okay. So, and this is like Groundhog Day because this is hitting every single committee. So
just record and hit play.
I wish I would have thought of that. But what we're trying to do with this legislation, and these 2 are traveling together, obviously, because we need to change the chart in order to establish the position and the responsibilities of the position. But we also need to change the code to get rid of the old Office of Environmental Policy and replace it with the new responsibilities. But the whole purpose is to raise the profile of the environmental program and also to begin to address the resilience components of everything that we do in the city. So that's what this legislation does. It takes the existing Office of Environmental Programs, which is 3 people, and moves 2 of them into the Office of the City Manager and moves one, the forester, into planning and zoning. All of the forestry type responsibilities move to planning and zoning. All of the other environmental programs that are in the Office of Environmental Programs move to with the 2 individuals to the City Manager's office. They'll be so they will reside within that organizational structure of the City Manager, but they will have additional authorities over both planning and public works, what I call dotted line authority, since a lot of the programs, the environmental programs in the city are related to those 2 departments or managed by those 2 departments. So as I've described to several of the other committees, my vision of the Deputy City Manager is for all things related to sustainability and resilience, that they don't necessarily do all the work, but they sort of act as the traffic cop to direct things through the intersection in the right priorities and with the right amount of attention and make sure that those are being done properly. But there are a few things that they're going to manage directly, mostly related to the city's stormwater permit and all of the public outreach, the public education, the good housekeeping within city facilities, the illicit discharge elimination type things. With one exception, and that's the water quality projects, the restoration projects will still be managed by Public Works as they are today. Those are capital projects and will continue to be overseen by Public Works. This position will also serve as the sort of the point of contact for all the environmental groups to make sure that their interests are being properly addressed and interests and concerns. So the interface between the environmental groups, including the Environmental Commission, will be through the Deputy City Manager. So that was the vision for this. I'm not sure what the economic implications are, so I'll let you all decide that. But certainly from an environmental perspective, I think there's some pretty major implications that go with this and hopefully improvements.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Any questions from Alderman Finlayson or Alderman Savage?
Well, I don't have a question, or maybe I do. I do have several questions. I am concerned about our organization in the city and the fact that we are adding a deputy city manager. We haven't decided as a city, as the policymakers, what our organizational chart is going to look like. We have this deputy being proposed, and for some, that is the highlight of their interests. However, we have other interests and needs in the city, public safety being another. So we should decide whether we want to create several deputies throughout the city. City Manager Gerald said he wants to raise the attention of the sustainability effort, which we should do, but we also need to raise the efforts as far as public safety is concerned. And, you know, sitting out here looming larger than life is going to be our need as a city to address some other more cultural issues that deal with race and racism in the city. So do we have plans for a deputy city manager for community, I'll say community cares because that's the department we're trying to create now. But, you know, that has become a very important piece, or will become a very important piece of what we do because things are changing. So I'm just uncomfortable, especially knowing what our history has been for the last at least 12 years since I've been sitting here, and how we've come full circle. And I makes me very uncomfortable that we would do something like this. The things that you mentioned, such as sustainability efforts that, or the stormwater management that would stay in DPW, I think, is what you said, Mr. Gerald, as well as water quality. Well, if they're already there, then why are we making a change now? You know, I hearken back to when, and I don't remember which committee it was, Director Gerald, but not Director, City Manager, I'm sorry. You were Director Gerald back then when you spoke in opposition to this, and maybe not really opposition, but when I asked specifically how you think it should run, and you said like it is. And Dr. Nash was there also, and she agreed with you. So we've just come full circle, and I don't understand why. I don't understand the level of authority that is going to be given through this legislation. Last year, we created an assistant to the city manager. We did not create an assistant city manager. But what we have today is a title and a position that we as a city council did not approve. You know, we didn't fund it. You know, we said we needed an assistant. And I know that for a fact because it took me 2 years and I sponsored the amendment to get an assistant to the city manager. Because when we created the city manager's position, I and others committed to giving that person staff. And it took 2 years and we got staff, but now we don't have staff because we have an assistant city manager, which we really don't have. It's just too combobulated or discombobulated, really. We need to sit down and decide as city policymakers what we want to be and what are our priorities and where we should put our greatest emphasis. And if at the end of the day, it's the environment, then so be it. If at the end of the day, it's social justice, then so be it. If at the end of the day, it's public safety, then so be it. But it's a decision that needs to be made and not this piecemeal that we seem to be doing. So, and I guess in there might have been a question, but I don't know what it was because.
Well,
so.
Thank you, Alderman Finlayson. Alderman Savage, you had your hand up?
I don't know if the city manager had anything you wanted to say before.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So it's just a couple of points. One is the reason why I think that we need a deputy city manager for these areas is because it touches each of the departments. Most of the like police and fire, those areas don't touch like environment and sustainability and resilience, touch all the departments. Those don't. So that's why we need sort of this umbrella organization that's going to be involved with each of the departments. The reason why I didn't support the last evolution or the last proposal for the environmental department was because we were pulling engineers out of public works engineering and putting them as a separate engineering group within that new department without engineers to report to, without a sort of a support group. At the time, I thought it was better to keep those engineers within public works doing the stormwater management and the other things that they do. We're not proposing to do that with this reorganization. We're going to leave the engineers where they are. We're only talking about moving 3 people. They're the 3 that are currently in the Office of Environmental Policy. 2 of them will move to the city manager. 1 will move to planning and zoning. So it's not pulling those sort of specialty groups out and into a new department. So that explains why I opposed then, but not now.
Thank you for that explanation.
Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah. I do think these are important questions. I'm just not sure if they're necessarily germane to economic matters. But I'll leave that up to you, Mr. Chair, what part of that you want us to focus on. But I do think, as the city manager said, there's other issues that you mentioned, Alderwoman. They already have directors and departments. And with the environment, we do currently have an office. But what we found is that these issues really are, as the city manager said, really cross-cutting against each of the departments. That's why you all have to see other organizations adopt similar approaches. And what comes to mind is Kurt Riegel, who gave us a testimony because he actually opposed the department proposal for this reason. He thought that something more in line with this is better organizationally. This is what he was saying they've used in the Navy, and I believe he said he fulfilled that role. And I think so. That's where I think this proposal has come about in kind of an organic way, I should say, because we've tried a number of alternatives but again, with the environment, that really overlaps a lot. And I think the benefit to having, it's not that necessarily picking and choosing issues to elevate, but by the nature of these responsibilities for environment, for sustainability and for resilience, I think at least it seems like that you can get the best implementation and coordination by having that position have the full authority of the city manager and their office to be able to, and that's why the charter amendment is really, I think it's worded quite well. I mean, Environmental Matters had a couple tweaks that I can certainly bring up, but it talks a lot about on page 2, line F, it really lays out the powers and duties. And so in the first one, it mentions implementing the programs and initiatives with each of the departments. And so it mentions all kinds of issues: environmental quality, climate change, sea level rise, energy efficiency, composting, litter reduction, solar, wind power, electric vehicles, local business and employment, transportation, public health and safety, and social equity. And those issues all impact multiple departments. And so I think it's organizationally, it's best to have somebody who has the authority to really implement that and coordinate that. And the hypothetical I was asking the city manager about yesterday was, if, just as an example, if this position and his office essentially decided that the city needed to do a greenway plan, that I was asking if this position would have the authority to essentially go to whatever appropriate department, be it Rec and Parks or Plan and Zoning, to say, well, look, this is something the city manager's office and the council or the mayor, whomever, has prioritized and would like to basically assign that to staff. And in this case, if it would go to Plan and Zoning, that would utilize Plan and Zoning staff, not just the forester, but other staff. At least that was the understanding I got from your answer yesterday, city manager.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
So you'll see that throughout this charter amendment in terms of advising city manager, mayor, and city council on initiatives, serving as the point person on a number of these programs. And this works collaboratively with the other city offices and departments. And so, I mean, I could go on, but it kind of mentions that. But that's where I think it is a bit different from some of these other areas that you identified, which I do think are important, but they already have dedicated staff and organizational apparatus to help support those. Public safety has a number of different departments that are coordinated together, but the environment's kind of been tossed around over the years, and this, I think, is I've been convinced based on what I've heard to support it. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
You're sticking with it. Well, may I ask, all the things that you mentioned, Alderman, could be a director could be empowered to do all of those things by the city manager. There was nothing that you mentioned that the city manager couldn't empower a director to do. Nothing would be unique. I mean, just like he empowers all of his directors to do whatever is needed. So, I mean, am I wrong, Mr. Gerald? I mean, could you not direct a department head, a director, to do all those things?
It's difficult as a director to do some of the things that we expect for this position to do with other directors. It's just difficult. It's not as effective. I can tell you that, from being 9 years as a director here in this city, the ability of that position to do the coordination and the things that we will want it to do is much different being a director than as a deputy city manager. It's just much different. It's a different level of authority. And no matter how much I empowered them, they're still a director with fellow directors. And you expect collaboration and coordination and all of that, but it's just different when they're in the city manager's office.
So it sounds like you're very heavily counting on this person to have authority over the directors.
To have authority on certain things related to the environment and sustainability and resilience, yeah.
And what kind of qualifications are going to be necessary for a person in that position?
So that's in the charter amendment, and we've also provided the position description to give you an indication. Let me pull up the position description.
Unfortunately, I'm on my iPad, so if I pull up my legislation, then I lose all of you guys. So,
Okay, so here's how it reads from the education and experience. It lists all the essential, the job summary and then the essential job functions, but I think you're asking for qualifications. So bachelor's degree from an accredited university in environmental policy, environmental sciences, public administration, or related field. An advanced degree preferred in these subject areas or related field. A minimum of 10 years of professional experience with a combination of environmental resources management or natural resources conservation, public policy, and public administration. Must have strong experience developing environmental resilience sustainability programs and policies, collaborating with environmental and sustainability stakeholders, working with government entities, performing advocacy, and analyzing and applying laws and regulations. Within the 10 years of professional experience, a minimum of 5 years must be in a management capacity. Preferred experience in consensus building and group facilitation. Prefer familiarity with and established working relationships with community stakeholders.
Was that a job description written by HR?
It was. Yes.
Okay. I didn't hear anything that would give that position authority over the other department heads.
No, this is just the qualifications for in the position description.
Yeah, I guess my question has to do with the authority. If we're going to create this position and give them authority over the other directors, are there no qualifications for that other than the subject matter qualifications?
Well, you know, I would think that the 10 years of professional experience and a minimum of those of 5 years from that 10 years has to be in a management capacity. So, but again, this position is not going to be managing the directors. The directors are still going to report directly to the city manager. It's more of a facilitation and you know, collaboration type thing of making sure that the priorities are being met and that these projects are being carried out the way we want them to be carried out on my behalf, on the city manager's behalf.
I'm sorry, I thought I heard you say that you needed to elevate it so that if something needed to be done, it's not just, hey, can you take care of this? But you need to do this, giving directive to the directors.
Using my authority, they would be able to do that. It's not a direct reporting responsibility. It's more of a making sure that things are being carried out properly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this, I mean, I'm excited for, I'm trying to call it a resilience and sustainability czar type. And it does, and bringing it back to the economic focus, and reading the description of the duties and the kind of authority this individual in this capacity will have, it has, in my opinion, significant economic long-term impacts, and hopefully beneficial because it intersects all areas, apparently, from the kind of environmentally responsible infrastructure changes that we need to be investing in and adopting for the long-term health, given climate change, given sea level rising, and others. It also has an equity component to it, where environmental justice is a major component that fuels economic communities to economically thrive. How investing in the infrastructure in the green and proper way will impact and benefit our businesses, the business community of Annapolis. Working with energy efficiency, lowering costs, making things greener. So this is a major economic piece, in my opinion, again, and so I think it's a great step forward in the right direction. Alderman Savage, you had something?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, if this is an appropriate time, Environmental Matters had some amendments that came about just from discussion with the city manager and the law office, and so I guess I could bring them up now if you'd like.
Sure.
So one of them, if
different from the Buckley amendments, are they different from the 8 Buckley amendments, or because they're not listed?
Yeah, they're different. We could deal with the Buckley ones first if you want.
Where are yours attached someplace? Because I don't have.
No, the committee just made them on the fly yesterday. So, but they're pretty simple. I can walk you through most of them.
Can Takia put them up? Put the Buckley amendments up also?
The Buckley amendments that are attached. You'll have to give me a second. I have to download them and do a couple of things first.
And the environmental matters.
We don't have those yet.
Yeah, those aren't. Sheila, did you have the access to the legislation?
They just did those last night.
Sheila, do you have access to legislation?
I have just the legislation. I'm gonna get.
Well, the legislation. We can start with that. So, just to clarify, the law office recommended that we clarify the essentially, well, I guess kind of the organization, the reporting mechanism, and if you'll see in the legislation, there's text inserted in. We don't know how that got in there. The administration didn't know, but anyway, there's red text that says at the direction of the city manager, and so essentially and that's on page 3, line 14 and 40. So our amendment was to strike that language in red, and then on page 2, lines 39, basically insert the same language there. So at the direction of the city manager, the deputy city manager shall have the following additional powers and duties, because the law office was saying that they wanted to clarify, I guess, that the power comes from the city manager's office. I mean, the city manager, Gerald, I don't know if you maybe explain that better than I am, or somebody from the law office.
Yeah, well, first of all, it was just odd that was in front of some of those and not all of them, because it seemed like it should be in either or, but not just a couple of them. But yeah, I mean, the thought was that these are not just sort of independent authorities that are granted. They all derive from the position of the city manager. So I think that's why we wanted that at the beginning.
Yeah.
May I ask? May I ask what I missed? I was pulling it up on page 3. We're adding at the direction of the city manager on line 14 and line 40.
It's being removed from those 2 lines and then inserted at the beginning of line 39 on page 2.
So I guess we're changing our procedure. So I'm kind of confused. So why the red has been inserted? I mean, we get new language in capital letters, and now we have red text. What does red text been added and now it's taken away?
Nobody had an answer for us at the committee about where that came from. So I don't know.
Well, who gets to add to our legislation? I mean, really? Okay, so where's it going on page 2?
Page 2, line 39, just at the beginning of that section F. And that was, again, from a recommendation from the law office.
Well, it says the deputy city manager have the following powers. So we're adding at the direction of the city manager, comma, the deputy city manager should have the following and additional powers and duties?
Yeah, Mr. Green, do you recall the exact language from Environmental Matters?
Sorry, I do not, and I didn't bring it with me.
Okay.
I can, if you give me a second, I can try to bring up from yesterday's meeting my notes.
Okay.
So what we're looking at are the Buckley amendments. They're not the same as what you just went through. Was that environmental matters?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
what
was
I was
from
going
environmental
through were
matters from
environmental
last night.
I suggest that we go through maybe while we're waiting for the environmental matters committee language, go through the Buckley one, since that's what we have on the agenda is what we'll be taking action on, right?
Right.
And then we can.
Sounds good.
All right. Mr. City Manager, do you want to walk through the amendments?
Sure. Let's see if I can split screen this so I can look at both with the.
Can we split screen on the iPads? Nobody knows. I know what I can do.
Most of these are just kind of grammatical corrections. So the first is we strike qualifications and insert duties, because duties better addresses what that list. Let me see if I can pull that up.
What was the second? The first one was line 4. And what was the second line? On page 1?
Lines 4 and 28.
28, okay. Okay. So are we on amendment number 2?
Yeah. I've just got the split screen. So let's see, page 2, line 13.
Mr. Chair, just be aware of the time. I think staff is going to have to end. I thought they said at 2 o'clock.
Oh, maybe we have to till 2:30. Ms. Green, is that possible?
Yes, 2:30 is fine, but it would definitely have to be 2:30.
Okay, so we have 20 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so these changes are just, grammatical, like the city manager said. There's nothing. Environmental matters kind of just breezed through these in particular because it's nothing substantive.
It looks like, yeah.
So I don't know. I'd be willing to make a motion to recommend favorably these amendments.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'm not going to second it because I would prefer to look at what these do for the legislation.
Okay.
I mean, I can see some of them are simply minor changes.
Yeah. So which one are you on?
We were on Amendment 2, I thought.
Okay, so what we're doing there is we're ending the sentence after position and getting rid of as enumerated in this article and as may be established by ordinance, because that's not really needed. So just end the sentence after position. The next one, page 2, line 40, where it has additional. So that reads, have the following additional powers. You don't need additional. It's the deputy city manager shall have the following powers and duties. So you don't need that word additional. Page 3, line 11. After environmental, it will become environmental quality and instead just environmental. So let's see how that will read. Page line 11. It reads.
May I ask what that means? Environmental quality?
What does environmental quality mean?
Yeah, and maybe I need to look at page 3.
Yeah, so what it's going to read is involved in, right now it reads involved in sustainability, resilience, and environmental compliance. So the way it's going to read is involved in sustainability, resilience, and environmental quality and compliance. So it's not just the compliance piece, it also adds the environmental quality piece as well.
Okay.
Let's see, page 3, line 28, delete the comma after goals and insert and. So
okay.
So after goals, it's just goals and to identify potential revisions to ensure resilient sustainability. Line 29, the very next line is ensure methods to, instead just ensure resilience, sustainability, and social equity goals, it's to ensure methods to achieve resilience, sustainability, and social equity goals.
Okay.
Line 30, strike integrated and insert included in project plans. So that will read, social equity goals are included in project plans. Such development projects would incur large scale. So this whole paragraph goes to reviewing select development projects. And this was a paragraph that we discussed a lot yesterday in Environmental Matters, because what the recommendation was is not just review select development projects, but review and recommend approval of development projects, recommend approval to planning and zoning, who ultimately reviews these projects. Instead of saying select, we got rid of the select and just it's basically all the development projects. Okay. And then on the last one, page 5, line 9. After technology, insert and. Oh, so this combines 9, 10, and 11. Instead of having those as separate paragraphs. So it's
this cleans up city manager code and not this position, the new position.
Yeah.
Just to
What line was that?
So that's on page 5. It's paragraphs 9, 10, and 11 are all combined into one paragraph by striking or by adding and after the technology. Wait, strike line 10.
Are we on line 8? Is that where we're striking?
We're striking line 10 because there's no Office of Environmental Policy anymore, so that has to be struck. And line 11 to supervisor. I'm not sure why that one's being struck.
Well, isn't line 11 to supervise the daily operation of the Human Resources Office?
Yeah, so that one stays. So I think what that does is it strikes 10, and then 11 becomes 10.
Why would this position supervise HR?
It doesn't. This is only changing the city manager's code. These are corrections to the city manager's code, not to the deputy city manager proposed code.
So the thing that's going away is line 10. So that entirety of line 10. In line 11, all that changes is the 11, the parentheses 11, and that needs to become 10 because 10 got deleted. So that 11 becomes 10.
Okay, so this whole section is the responsibilities of the city manager.
Right.
Has nothing to do with the deputy position. Correct?
Right. But we had to strike line 10 because there no longer is office.
I understand that.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes, so that concludes those amendments. I'll make my motion again for.
And I'll second it. I'm good with all these amendments. I probably won't. I'm gonna be a Fred, but okay.
Once in a while, you know. So the second, all in favor of we'll take them as a group. Amendments 1 through 8, the Buckley amendments. Please say aye.
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 Great. Is there a motion to recommend? Sorry, just let me get the number back up. CA 120 favorably.
I do have kind of a copy paste of the environmental matters amendments if you wanted to see those.
Yeah, sure. But are we able to take action on those or?
Well, you're not taking action on anyone else's amendments. You're really just showing support for them. So if you wanted to see them and.
I don't know, for the sake of time, I don't know what you want to do, Chair. We've about 11 minutes.
There were only 2 for CA 120.
Well, how about we just take the Buckley 1 through 8 right now? I mean, since we have because we're how about we just take the 1 through 8 right now, the Buckley ones, and then we recommended those favorably. And then we just proceed with making a recommendation on the charter amendment as amended. Is that good with?
The environmental matters did not amend this yesterday, or they did?
They did, and I'm sorry. I think it was more than 2. I forgot you guys reconsidered and added another amendment as well. But
yeah, it works out to essentially be 2 though, because 2 of them are related with the city manager.
So why aren't we considering their amendments?
I just didn't know if it was we could officially include them in our recommendation right now.
I don't understand why we wouldn't. If environmental matters made these put forward with these amendments. I mean, it's up to you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I'm just worried a little bit about time because then there are other amendments for 2020, right? 1 through 5.
Yeah, there are administration amendments to that one.
Similar to,
And environmental matters had 1 to that.
Okay. Then, I mean, do you think I'm I'm wasting time here.
Wouldn't it make sense to dispatch with at least one of them in total, or
Sure.
as
I can go over
opposed
them
to
quickly.
not?
Sure. Let's go through the environmental ones then.
All right. So the one is that the language I went over earlier about just putting in. Let's see, I'm looking at Amendment 2. Yeah, so Amendment 2 is the one I went over earlier, which was just inserting language at the direction of the city manager. Again, just a recommendation from the law office to clarify. So, are there any questions about that one in particular? Amendment 2.
Are you talking about your second amendment?
Yes, that's the easy one. Well, I think it'd be easy.
Since we don't even know where that language came from, I think that should be taken out of the legislation, period. It didn't get there through official capacity. Well, we didn't put it in, or did it?
No, well, originally we removed it, but then the city attorney came back and said we need to insert something like that at the very beginning of the that section of the legislation. So that's why we ended up putting it back in on page 2, line 39.
Yeah, so after they reconsidered, that's actually the third amendment that I was just speaking of. They put it back in on page 2, line 39, at the direction of the city manager, comma. So that was the third amendment.
Yeah.
That's just moving the location of that.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay, and I'm fine with that. Now, what's the First Amendment, though? I'm not sure. Strike select and add approve on page 3, line 26.
Yes, so this is one that Alderman Arnett has proposed. That just makes, so right now it reads, reviews select development projects to ensure the city's environmental regulations are being fully utilized, yada, yada. Such development projects would include large-scale projects as well as those that may impact sensitive natural resources. That's the current wording. And so Alderman Arnett and then the committee ended up proposing that it gets changed to reviews. So basically remove select. So instead of reviews select development projects, put in reviews and approve select development projects. So the committee felt that it was important to put in there approve so that they have the line authority, just like fire marshal or public works or whomever have review line authority under planning and zoning's authority to say if they need to require revisions or if they want to approve a project. And so this would just allow them to require revisions for projects. So examples could include something akin to the public water access that we've seen be an issue because that would fall under the environment and social equity aspect of this position. So they could help push those initiatives through. It could include, for example, stormwater or something. If they felt that if this position felt there was an opportunity for a nearby stream that could get restored, they could go and make that require that revision to say, restore the stream as a part of your project, presumably with communication with other departments. But that's just an example off the top of my head. And that's the kind of things we discussed in the committee yesterday.
May I ask what the language is, and maybe somebody has access to it, for our APF that has a sign-off for all of our departments? Because I'm not sure they have the same line of authority that we're giving here.
Well, they do. It's separate from the APF. So, for example, fire marshal has their own code that says they have authority over fire marshal issues. And so they have a review in, for example, site design review or grading permit review. I think it's typically site design review when this happens. And so, or for public works, they have the ability to comment on the stormwater aspect, which they have the power to do in code. And this would simply give this position the power to comment on these kind of, is that accurate when I say that, city manager, in terms of how I'm phrasing it?
And Dr. Nash just jumped on too, so she can expound on that.
I was just going to say that it's different in each section of the code. I would say this is pretty unique in that it specifically says review and now will say approve. It doesn't say that anywhere else in the code. Like if you look for grading permits, it doesn't say anything about a certain position reviewing and approving anything. In fact, it really just says you apply to planning and zoning, and that's who ultimately approves the permit. So this makes me a little nervous because I feel like this muddies the waters in terms of approval. I mean, I think we all understand what it means now, but in 5 years from now, we might look at it and be like, what? You know, it might mean something else. So those are my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I think somehow we need to change that so it's recommend approval to the planning and zoning director, because it's that position that has the authority to approve. And the planning and zoning director doesn't approve unless each of the reviewers recommends approval. But I don't think we want to say approve there. I think we want to say recommend approval or something of that sort. City attorney just jumped on too, so I think he wants to add something.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I watched that recommendation come down, not really sure where you were going with approve or that committee, but it's evident that at this level, no one has approval authority over those projects, but the individuals that you've given approval authority, and even up to the city manager and then the council itself. So you don't want to hand off that authority without consideration. So I would agree with the city manager that recommendation for approval is probably where you want to be.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's how it's worded in other sections of code. Because I mean, in stormwater management, it specifically defines who's the approving agency, and that still, for example, would be public works in that regard. So and I'm trying to find where it defines the relation to planning and zoning.
I'm just going to jump in for a second because Ms. Green has a comment. Yep. We have one minute left.
2.
Yes, 1 minute.
Well, it looks like those, I guess, need a little work. Do we just want to take the Buckley original 1 through 8 and make a recommendation, a charter amendment with those in mind?
You already did that.
Okay. Oh, great.
What did we? Well, I guess we haven't acted on it then. But I'll move to approve CA 120 as amended by the administration, and with, well, we didn't vote on the one amendment. And just stick it to that as amended by the administration.
Is there a second?
You can second it, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Or
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Alderman Finlayson. Thank you. Well, I guess that's all we have time for right now. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get to 2020, and I apologize to also Mr. Rice and Ms. Hope and Ms. Stewart from the Economic Development Office and Mr. Evans from downtown that they didn't get a chance to give us an update today, but hopefully soon and next time. So with that in mind, I guess I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you for keeping us on track, Ms. Green.